Council join me in saying the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Please be seated. I have received apologies from Councillor Tony Creed, Natalie Neal, Cameron Razak, Laura Taylor-Childs. Are there any further apologies for absence? Thank you. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest in accordance with the Members' Code of Conduct?
None noted, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I note the wording of the proposed motion before the extraordinary meeting this evening. All members of Council will have received a copy of an email sent by one councillor to the leader a few weeks ago. That email seems to have been the catalyst for this meeting being called. I am aware that the leader of the council is now taking private legal action against that councillor. I would ask members to bear those circumstances in mind when making any contribution during this evening's meeting. The position of the leader of the council, I call on Councillor Kwada Zada, who I understand wishes to move a motion as stated in the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the motion is in the Yellow Book, and I would ask members to look at that for the detail on that. I'm going to cover two themes here, the politics and the impact on the residents. I've noticed the childish name-calling in the press by the council leader. My intention tonight, unless provoked otherwise, will be to concentrate on the impact that these behaviours have on individuals, and this is what the interests of the communities that we serve. Madam Mayor, I've not called this motion to snatch Labour victory from the Conservatives, despite what's been said. The motion has not got anything about a Labour politician replacing the leader or proposing any Labour administration. We'll deliver this in May 2024. I'm not looking to explore personal relationships. That's a matter for those involved, and there's no political games intended. This is a very serious matter, and we need to focus on the residents and the aspirations of those that we serve, and in doing so, respect and support our women politicians. Madam Mayor, under this leader, this authority is embroiled in continuous scandal after scandal, broken promises and scandal, and we've had enough. The council has become a laughing stock. Broken promises, made-up regeneration with no prospect of delivery, like the velodrome, the pop-up arena, the 10,000-seat stadium, theatre, metro to Stourbridge, ice ring, youth centre, Cavendish House Quarter, mega police station, major investment from MIPIN, and the list is endless. Not a single one of those delivered to date. Instead, we have a borough in decline, record increase in council tax, high streets shrinking, roads, parks, grass verges in an absolute state, social care assessments taking longer, hospital patients in hospitals waiting for packages of care, concerns by Ofsted about children's services, leapfrog consultation, threats to our libraries, tenants with no evidence of safety checks, hundreds of thousands wasted on a jolly to France, record levels of antisocial behaviour, and residents in despair. Not a single penny in levelling up bids secured, and total inadequate support for people struggling with mortgages, gas and electricity bills, fuel prices and food prices. We used to have a constructive cross-party working relationship based on trust, and this benefited our borough. Madam Mayor, this is impossible. Neither we or his own group trust this leader. Several of his cabinet have left. Almost half of them penned a letter for him to go. Neighbouring authorities ditched him. Walsall Conservatives said they couldn't trust him. No constructive working relationship with the police. Can't negotiate on Anchor Lane. Can't negotiate on the Black Country Plan. Can't even engage his own colleagues of his own group. And if that's not enough, officers leaving in droves with record levels of turnover. This leader, Madam Mayor, could start a fight in an empty room. In 2018, Heather Rogers gave us her mind. Pre-election council meeting, we heard from Councillor Millwood and Councillor Westwood, and as you referenced, the recent email that we've all received. So many people can't be wrong, Madam Mayor, and this suggests that the leader over there has a problem with women. A leader with the wrong priorities, preoccupied with his own selfish needs rather than the plight of residents. I know the leader will do what he has learned so well, attempt to curtail this debate and have some ambitious future cabinet member misguided to call for the question to be put. But this is the start of our fight, and we will fight for local people. Madam Mayor, this is not about Labour politics. Let me tell you, and let me read for you, a different email that I have received from a Conservative, and it says, and I quote, "Can I wish you all the best on tonight's outcome? It's a sad day for us all in the Tory party who have worked so hard only to see it ruined by one man's ego and failure to value people and deal with difficult issues." I answered a text message on the way in. It said, "Good luck, fingers crossed." That was another Conservative member. Broken promises, Madam Mayor, lack of delivery, women marginalised, officers escaping, cabinet folding, no cooperation, ditched by everybody. And Councillor Harley, this is your time to do the right thing. Councillor Harley, it's time for you to go and let us get on with the job of rebuilding Dudley. Madam Mayor, the motion that I've put forward is set out in the book, and I would urge everybody to support it in the interests of Dudley. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Zada. Is there a seconder?
Perhaps the microphone could be given to Councillor Bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In seconding this, I want to look at this as what it's like to be a woman councillor in Dudley. You know, I haven't got these wrinkles for no reason. I've been around a bit. I can remember being a head teacher when the work people came on the premises. They'd look at my caretaker and say, "Yes, sir, what do you want doing?" And I had to say, "No, I'm the head teacher." For years and years, my letters would come addressed to the headmaster. I always put a line straight through them, and I'd say, "No headmasters in this school." It's hard, but we've won that battle in education. But I didn't think when I came to this council chamber I would ever have to make the speech I'm making now. When I went to the Council for Awards in Care, Health and Education, I was on that board for 11 years. When we started, it was 42 people, 4 were men. 11 years after I left, it was 10 people, 5 men and 5 women, and everyone brought something to the board. We won that battle. And yet here I am in Dudley Council, having to witness women being marginalised and attacked. When I was here not so long ago, at the end of April, I made a speech, and I said about the 3 female members who were leaving. But of course, I'd forgotten that when I joined this council in 2012, within 2 years, 2 women, Conservative councillors, had left and joined us. So when we said, "Well, why have you come to us?" the words they said was, "We can't believe your group meetings. You discuss things. We're not being bullied as to what we should do." And then, as Councillor Zada has just alluded to, we all watched the spectacle of a female councillor from the Conservative Party in the middle of the council chamber telling us why she was leaving the Conservatives in Dudley. She remained a Conservative, but she didn't want to serve with a current Conservative group. So I said at the end of April, I actually quoted, if you remember, I quoted Oscar Wilde when Lady Bracknell was talking about the loss of parents. I said, to lose one female member is unfortunate, to lose two is careless, and three, I said, was a plot. Well, 7 women councillors in the Conservative group have gone. 7 since 2012. It's not a plot. It's something wrong with this Conservative group, that somehow you cannot manage women. And it's all right, Councillor Harley saying, oh, well, I didn't know anything about this. You are the leader, Councillor Harley. You should take the rap. I was a head teacher. If anything went wrong, I took the rap. You are the leader, and unfortunately, your time has come. So I would say, for the 7, by the time I get to the 7 women that have gone, this is an example of a group who are fighting amongst themselves. They are not treating women in the correct manner, and I have to say, this impinges everything we do in council. We talk more about the fighting and falling out on your side than anything about what the people of Dudley need. So, Madam Mayor, I would like to second this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bills. Councillor Sean Kesey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First, can I state that I will be supporting the motion to remove Councillor Harley as leader of Dudley Council. As defined in Dudley Conservative Group rules, members are not obliged to vote with the group on matters of conscience. I also want to disassociate myself with the remarks of Councillor Harley in the Express and Star on July the 5th, where he described the opposition as low life. A shameful comment in the current political climate, in my opinion, and I wonder if he read the dictionary definition before committing such potentially libellous words to print. The 7 principles of public life, the Nolan principles, include integrity and honesty. Councillor Harley has admitted to a more than 4-year affair, not just within the Conservative group, from what I can recall, several newspaper articles too. I understand he believes this affair should be a private matter between the people involved. This might be the case had it been Mr. Harley, private citizen, or even, it could be argued, Councillor Harley, backbench councillor. Councillor Harley is not only the leader of Dudley Council, a position of immense trust and responsibility, he is a corporate parent, the corporate parent in the highest elected position. Dudley Children's Corporate Parenting Strategy 21 to 23 states in our commitment to children and young people in our care and the corporate parenting principles that underpin everything that we do to ensure that they are safe, have stability in their home lives, relationships and education at work. Does this sound like an ideal role for someone who freely admits to a 4 or more year affair? Many will remember the final full council of the previous year in April, when Councillor Harley expressed sorrow at the departure of former councillors Mill Ward and Tina Westwood and his hopes of their return. It might surprise you, therefore, to see messages sent to me by Councillor Harley expressing no such sentiment. Quotes, "She's a horrible person, no shame, a hypocrite and a liar. She will get hers at some point," in relation to former Councillor Mill Ward. "Lol, rude name, put down. Yaha, check the, bracket swear word," which I won't read out, rule. Read the rule book to Westwood. Soon after, Councillor Westwood was not reselected to stand as a candidate. I remind you of the Nolan principles of honesty and integrity. But the crux of this matter is the allegation that a female colleague has been made to feel uncomfortable and vulnerable in Councillor
Councillor
Harley's
Keating,
presence.
can I just stop you there and ask you to be very cautious with what you're saying under the current circumstances,
Absolutely.
please?
Absolutely. I have seen no rebuttal or contrition to this other than words along the lines of she shouldn't have been in the cabinet then. I've never been a supporter of positive discrimination, but to see the female cabinet member almost immediately removed and replaced by a male, what integrity. I note in this motion that the opposition are not putting up an alternative candidate to Councillor Harley. Whatever the result of the vote on this, Dudley will remain Conservative controlled with Conservative leadership. I have already stated my belief that there are extremely capable potential group and council leaders on this side, and I urge one of them to stand up and restore integrity to the group leadership. We have a responsibility to the voters who elected us. Once again, based on my previous comments and on conscience, I will be supporting this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kesey. Councillor Collins. Is there a seconder?
Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's probably as well that I remind myself, you may be seated, members, it's probably as well I remind myself, you, Madam Mayor, and also the meeting, what the Constitution requires. Procedural 14.11a, a member may move, without comment, the following motions at the end of a speech of another member, that the question now be put. It goes on to subparagraph B. If a motion that the question now be put is seconded, and the Chair thinks the item has been sufficiently discussed, he or she will put the procedural motion to the vote. If it is passed, he or she will give the mover of the original motion a right to reply before putting his or her motion to any amendment to vote. In other words, Madam Mayor, this is now a matter for you to decide in your judgment whether there has been a sufficient debate in these circumstances. But I would also refer members of the Council to is Council Procedural 25, and that's the interpretation of Council Rules and Procedures, which states that the ruling of the Mayor or Chair of a committee has the construction or application of any of these Council Procedurals or any proceedings of the Council or Committee shall not be challenged at any meeting of the Council or Committee. So your decision as to the sufficiency of the debate so far in these particular circumstances is final.
I think that the debate has had sufficient comments made. So could members now vote on the procedural motion?
There has been a named vote call for Madam Mayor, which requires 6 members. I think virtually all of the Labour group stood up, so it'll be a named vote.
So yeah, this will be a named vote.
What will happen, Madam Mayor, in these circumstances is that the Democratic Services Manager will call out each member's name in alphabetical order, and members have the opportunity to say for, that's the question be put now, against, that the question not be put, or they may abstain. Procedural motion. Yes. Could I just remind people that this is on the procedural vote only. This vote is on the procedural vote that the question now be put.
Okay.
And members have asked for a named vote. Mr. Griffiths.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. What I will do on the procedural motion is I will read out the names of all members of the council and the response is either for, against or abstain on the motion. So the first name on the list is Councillor Showcase.
If I can just remind members, if you are for this motion, this is a procedural motion, you are for the question now being put. If you are against, you're against the question now being put. Thank you, Mr. Griffiths.
Councillor Ali.
Thank you,
Just a yes or a no?
Yeah, I'm coming to that. I mean, what's the issue? I'm against this because I believe...
Can we just have
It's
a
a
for,
vote.
against or an abstain, please?
Against.
Against.
Yeah.
So Councillor Adam Aston.
Against.
Councillor Margaret Aston. Against. Councillor Phil Atkins. Councillor Chris Barnett. Councillor Kathy Baton. Councillor Daniel Bevan. Councillor Ian Bevan.
For.
Councillor Hilary Bills. Councillor Dave Borley. Councillor Sarah Bothell. Councillor Paul Bradley. Councillor Ruth Buttery. Councillor Kieran Casey.
Against.
Councillor Bryn Challoner. Councillor Steve Clark. Councillor James Clinton. Councillor Rob Clinton. Councillor Rebecca Collins. Councillor Damien Caulfield. Councillor Jackie Carroll.
Against.
Councillor Tim Crumpton. Councillor Adam Davis. Councillor Carl Denning. Councillor Pete Dobb. Councillor Pete Drake. Councillor Matt Dudley. Councillor Kat Eccles. Councillor John Elliott. Councillor Michael Evans. Councillor Judy Foster.
Against.
Councillor Andrea Goddard, the Mayor.
For.
Councillor Mohammed Hanif. Councillor Donna Harley. Councillor Patrick Harley. Councillor Stuart Henley. Councillor Alan Hopwood. Councillor Adrian Hughes. Councillor Luke Johnson. Councillor Sean Kesey. Councillor Ian Kettle. Councillor Ed Lawrence. Councillor Pete Lee. Councillor Angus Lees. Councillor Kerry Lewis. Councillor Wayne Little. Councillor Pete Lowe.
Can I be strongly against, please, Steve?
Councillor John Martin. Councillor Peter Miller. Councillor Shanila Mughal. Councillor Simon Phipps. Councillor Adila Kayoum. Councillor Sue Ridney. Councillor Matt Rogers. Councillor Parmjit Sahota.
Against.
Councillor David Stanley. Councillor Claire Sullivan. Councillor Wayne Sullivan. Councillor Alan Taylor. Councillor Elaine Taylor. Councillor Andrew Tromans. Councillor Webb. Councillor Kevin Westwood. Councillor Mark Westwood. And Councillor Kadar Zada.
Absolutely against.
That's it, thank you. We just check the numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Both I and Mr Griffiths have been keeping a tally of the votes. I can say those for, 38 votes, those against, 27 votes. So the question may now be put, but obviously after Councillor Zard has had his right to reply if he wishes to exercise that.
Would you like to reply?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, Madam Mayor, I'm absolutely appalled that such an important issue we've considered one speaker from the opposition and one from this side to be considered a full debate. Even the size and the quality of debate has gone down under that leader, and he has instructed his side, and they followed, and they've now gone and said this is a sufficient debate. I shall bear that in mind when I hear them rabbit on about issues not as important as we have heard today. What we've heard today is about the future of this borough. Now, I'll remind everybody just before they vote, this is not a Labour motion for a Labour council. This is about rebuilding the Dudley Borough. This is a time, instead of you sending messages and emails privately to me and other members about the leader, for you to do something about it yourself. The reason why this is so important, Madam Mayor, is every single council meeting I come to now, it's most of the discussion is about the scandal of the Conservative Party in which the fingerprints of the leader opposite are all over. We've just heard from Councillor Keesing, a former staunch supporter who would stand up for Councillor Harley, saying he can no longer has confidence in him. 15 of them wrote a private letter. Some of them on that front bench there said they had no confidence in the leader. We'll see if you've got confidence in the leader and whether it was about your careers that you were interested in or the future of this borough that you were interested in. And let me remind you what you are voting. You are voting on a vote of conscience. When you vote and say that you are against this motion, you are saying that you approve of the way that the leader has behaved, you are approving of the broken promises that I've listed, you're approving of women being marginalised in this council under the leadership, officers escaping and locum and agency costs running, the cabinet changing every other week, and the fact that we have been isolated as a direct result of the leader in the way that he's working with other authorities and other public services. And we will know yet again what the backbone of the Conservatives are. We were told yet again today that he misled the council and pretended that he wasn't involved in the deselection of a women councillor, but actually privately he'd sent something. How can we trust him, Madam Mayor? How can we trust a leader like this to have faith that he'll do the right thing? He might be able to call us names, but he won't scare us on this side. And let me remind you again of Heather Rogers in 2018. Some on those front benches, Madam Mayor, may be able to turn their back on their mothers for a measly few pounds, but on this side we'll stand up for women and we will make sure that whatever political persuasion they are, we believe in equality and we believe in the high standard. Don't you dare try and tell me what standards are after what you've done, Councillor.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's not
Please, enough.
It's not over, Madam Mayor. We'll carry on and we'll fight for this borough. If they're not over there, have abandoned it. Thank you, Madam Mayor. They say never trust a Tory. We're about to see it in action. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Let's get back onto this. This is what counts, not your rubbish.
Before I put the substantive motion to the vote, is anybody requesting a named vote?
I will need 6 members to indicate a named vote. Yes, we have more than 6 members, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So, Steve, back over to you, please.
So again, Madam Mayor, through you, this is on the substantive motion. If you are for the motion, that's for that the leader be removed. If you're against the motion, or abstain.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will do the name vote now in the same way that we did the procedural motion. I'll read out the names of members and the responses for, against or abstain on the motion. So the first name is Councillor Shaukat Ali.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Just a for or against, please, Councillor Ali.
I was coming to that. I'm for the motion.
Thank you.
Councillor Adam Aston. Councillor Margaret Aston. Councillor Phil Atkins. Councillor Chris Barnett. Councillor Cathy Baton. Councillor Dan Bevan. Councillor Ian Bevan.
Against.
Councillor Hilary Bills. Councillor Dave Borley. Councillor Sarah Bothell. Councillor Paul Bradley.
Against.
Councillor Ruth Buttery. Councillor Kieran Casey. Councillor Bryn Challoner. Councillor Steve Clark.
Against.
Councillor James Clinton. Councillor Rob Clinton. Councillor Rebecca Collins. Councillor Damien Caulfield.
Against?
Councillor Jackie Cowell.
For.
Councillor Tim Crumpton. Councillor Adam Davis. Councillor Carl Denning. Councillor Pete Dobb. Councillor Peter Drake. Councillor Matt Dudley. Councillor Kat Eccles. Councillor John Elliott. Councillor Michael Evans. Councillor Judy Foster. Councillor Andrea Goddard, the Mayor.
Against.
Councillor Mohammed Hanif. Councillor Donna Harley. Councillor Patrick Harley.
Against?
Councillor Stuart Henley. Councillor Alan Hopwood. Councillor Adrian Hughes. Councillor Luke Johnson. Councillor Sean Casey. Councillor Ian Kettle. Councillor Ed Lawrence. Councillor Peter Lee.
Against?
Councillor Angus Lees. Councillor Kerry Lewis. Councillor Wayne Little. Councillor Pete Lowe.
For.
Councillor John Martin. Councillor Peter Miller. Councillor Shanila Mughal. Councillor Simon Phipps. Councillor Adila Kayyum. Councillor Sue Ridney. Councillor Matt Rogers.
Against?
Councillor Parmjit Sahota.
For.
Councillor David Stanley. Councillor Claire Sullivan. Councillor Wayne Sullivan. Councillor Alan Taylor. Councillor Elaine Taylor. Councillor Andrew Tromans. Councillor Mark Webb. Councillor Karen Westwood. And Councillor Mark Westwood. And Councillor Kadar Zada.
More backbone in a jellyfish, Madam Mayor. I'm for the motion.
Thank you. We'll just take a moment to count the...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Those in favour of the motion, 27 votes. Those against the motion, 38 votes. The motion is lost.
Thank you. There is no further business, so that concludes the extraordinary meeting of the Council. There will now be an adjournment and the ordinary meeting will commence after a short break. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Will members please be seated? We will now proceed to the business for the ordinary meeting of the Council. I have received apologies from Councillors Tony Creed, Natalie Neal, Cameron Razak and Laura Taylor-Childs. Are there any further apologies for absence? Any prior declarations of interest made under the Members' Code of Conduct have been published online. Interests previously disclosed by members at meetings are recorded in the minutes on the White Book, which is also published online. All these interests will be taken as read. They are deemed as repeated at this council meeting. I now invite members to declare any additional interests.
No further indications, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I move that the minutes of the annual meeting held on the 18th of May and the extraordinary meeting held on the 20th of June 2023 be confirmed as correct records and signed. Does the Council agree? Aye. That is carried. Friday the 14th of July is Black Country Day. The inaugural Dudley Grand Prix cycling event will be taking place in the town centre on this day. The free event begins with a community ride for families at 4 p.m. and competitive races for different age groups, including regional amateurs race from 5 p.m. and then the women's national circuit and the men's national circuit finale. There will also be fun fair rides, a stage on Stone Street, family entertainment and food and drink concessions. Black Country Musicom is taking place at Himley Hall on the 15th and 16th of July. On Saturday the 15th of July we have dance anthems and club classics from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday the 16th of July we'll have tribute acts and comedy from 12 noon. The events also include a fun fair, giant sandpit, stalls and food and drink. Final tickets are now available on the Himley Hall and Park website. I am sure that everyone will join me in expressing sadness at the recent death of Councillor Ian Brookfield, the leader of Wolverhampton City Council. Our condolences and sincere sympathies go to colleagues and friends at Wolverhampton City Council, and particularly to Ian's wife, Councillor Paula Brookfield, and the family at this sad time. Moving on to the reports and recommendations. Capital Programme Monitoring and Medium-Term Financial Strategy, I call on the leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members of the Council, I move, 1, that the recommendations of the Cabinet, as set out in the report, be approved and adopted, and 2, that the recommendations from the Cabinet meeting on the 6th of July 2023 to amend the medium-term financial strategy and budgets as referred to in paragraphs 16 to 20 of the report, be confirmed.
Is there a seconder?
Formally seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Call on the leader to reply.
Any debate?
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, this meeting is what the real business of the Council is.
Apologies, leader. I think I'm just... is there anybody that wishes to speak on this before?
I think Councillor Ali was indicating.
Councillor Ali?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Should we do that? It's item 14, page 30. I expressed concerns about borrowing the £250,000 to pay consultants to come up with a new layout of Dudley Market. I was not, and I raised this at the Cabinet last week, but I was not entirely convinced with the answer that was given. And I don't believe this approach is best value for money. What I see in this proposal is the hallmark of MIPIN 2, an open-ended check. There's no timescales, no delivery, what's going to be done. Whilst I welcome any efforts to regenerate the town centre, paying consultants to tell us the layout of the market is not the right way to go, Madam Mayor. The previous Labour administration got regional funding and spent almost £6.7 million to revamp the market about 5-6 years ago. I have spoken to a number of market traders, and the issues they highlight is not the layout of the market, but the antisocial behaviour and drug taking that takes place in the town centre, the cleanliness of the area, the town square and the market, the sunken paving slabs, the betting shops, and not having a main anchor store in the town. As I said at the Cabinet, Madam Mayor, what is needed is a discussion with the contractors, the traders, and the local people who use the market to ask them what is working and not to pay consultants £250,000 when we can dedicate and allocate an officer of this council to go and speak to the traders, to the residents and people who use the market and come up with a better solution. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Crumpton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pages 28 and 31. On paragraph 8, it talks about an additional £300,000 growth for parks development. On paragraph 15, it talks about the Lawn Tennis Association, who attended one of the meetings of the Ernie Stevens Trust Committee and put forward proposals to make better a number of the tennis courts. Obviously, I welcome that. This council should welcome that. What I'm really concerned about, though, is that one of the parks that's involved with this is Woollerscope Park, the largest park in our borough by acreage. If you want to go to the loo in Woollerscope Park, Lord help you. You can wade through the ladies' toilet, you can hold your nose while you go in the gents' toilet, and you're lucky if you're able to go and use the disabled toilet, because if the back gates aren't open, you can't. We have a beautiful Woollerscope Hall, which I think people will remember Councillor Hunt, in his time, made sure that that hall was fit for purpose by housing some of our stuff in there. But you go around the back of it, and if it wasn't for the Friends of Woollerscope Park and the work that they did with officers to get the sensory garden there, all we would have is some dilapidated tennis courts, a bowling green which is run and kept up by the members of that bowling club, but you wouldn't be able to use the toilets. To have £300,000 growth in parks development will be welcome for those parks, but why has there been nothing coming forward for Woollerscope Park at all? We have hundreds of people who go there. The Friends have to clean the toilets in the ladies, mop out the muck and the water that comes through there all of the time. That is unacceptable and has been brought to the attention of this council on so many occasions we cannot count them. To have a new or refurbished tennis court there with locks on it, so it can only be used for tennis, sounds great for the tennis players. But what about the fact that in the winter it's hard to play tennis in the ice, isn't it? But we could use those areas for something else, if only this council had used the opportunity to have done so. So we got a really nice tennis court, a wonderful sensory garden, which I'd invite you all to go to on Fridays in the summer and have coffee and cakes provided by the volunteers there. But you won't be able to go to the loo. It is absolutely disgraceful that in this day and age we have a park with no facilities. And finally, Homer Hill Park on the other side of my ward. We have a huge building that's been put there with toilets, but you can't get in. If you're a nan or a granddad taking your little kid there, you have to take them to the bushes just around the corner. What the hell is that about in this day and age? Why can this council not look beyond the end of its nose and, particularly in some of the parks, in some of our boroughs seem to have had an awful lot, mainly in Conservative wards, right? Why is it we can't provide the basic needs that our citizens deserve in these parks? Please, let's think about some money towards those. Let's think about working with things like the Friends of the Parks to actually get something that's desperately needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crumpton. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question about the park development projects. Obviously, it's welcome that some parks are going to be given some attention and funding. I was just wondered if Arkle Park in Woodsetting is next on the list for funding to be given, because it's in a very dilapidated state, and residents regularly contact us to find out if the park's ever going to receive any improvements, because they want somewhere nice for their children to play. So it's just, the question's welcome that some parks are going to be given some investment. It's just when will the other parks be given some attention as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Caulfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, keeping our borough clean and tidy has been a priority of this administration for some time. This is why successive budgets have put additional resources into our public realm services. You'll see that in the budget report, this trend is continuing as we prioritise a clean and attractive borough. Our specific investment plans in the budget report is additional staff to put into the grounds maintenance service, recognising the pressure our operational teams are under, despite increased investment. A further 2 quad bikes to tackle weeds, meaning there will be 1 quad bike spraying and treating weeds in each of our 5 community areas. A new concept of clean teams, which is effectively a vehicle and a small 2-staff team to tackle each area's worst affected spots. We won't be focused on whether or not the affected spots are on public or private land. We will simply deal with the issues in our communities that are most concerned about. Once these teams are in situ, ward councillors will be asked to prioritise areas to clean up, areas such as untidy garage areas or neglected and abandoned land, which has become problematic. Since becoming Cabinet Member, I have tasked the team with having a neighbourhood focus and operating alongside our local communities. This is why later this week we will start an employee consultation process. The objective of this is to create 5 neighbourhood teams reflecting our community area forums. For each of these 5 areas to be led by an area street scene manager with the absolute authority and autonomy to bend resources to the local priorities. And for each team to consist of multi-skilled staff tackling the issues most important to our local communities, either ground maintenance or street cleansing. Ward councillors know their areas best. In creating this local focus with local teams, we will ensure the whole borough gets even cleaner and greener. There is obviously a formal staff consultation exercise to take place, which needs to be undertaken properly and ensure everyone's views are taken on board. I'm hopeful this new way of working can start in the autumn, whilst accepting it will inevitably take time to fully embed. I'm the Cabinet Member for the whole borough, and I will ensure that the whole borough becomes cleaner and greener, and would be delighted to update the Council later in the year on our progress, on the progress that we're making. I would also ask all councillors in this chamber, regardless of political party, to support this approach towards localised neighbourhood working, and once appointed, work alongside our area teams to ensure our operational services are focused on the areas most important to local people. And as I say, nobody knows this better than local ward councillors. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Henney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Page 29, section 9 on CCTV improvements. Now, whilst I welcome this expenditure, and I'm aware that many of our car parks across the borough need maintenance and security of some sort, with antisocial behaviour and other things going on. But I am really concerned that the monitoring of real, true data is not being communicated in any way to members or the public. Certainly in my ward, Madam Mayor, I have asked the Housing and Safety Cabinet member to provide me with real data as to the fly tipping that we are still consistently getting, and it's been good long 8 years of it. I'm sick and tired of listening to this data, and I've not received anything to date, to be honest. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Can people hear me? No, I'm not much taller than when I stand up, so hopefully you can pick up the microphone. It's with regard to page 29.10 on telecare. And it's really just to make a very brief contribution, really, about hopefully collaborative working. Because firstly, I support the move, and the leader may well recollect I raised this at Cabinet meeting the other evening. But I do want to push this a little bit further, if I may. And what I'm looking at really, now we've met as the new Cabinet members, a way that outside of this council chamber, we can really have a look at the whole telecare service, based upon what both parties, both Conservative and Labour run, have looked at with regard to invest to save and how we can actually look towards a service that actually brings money in order to protect the most vulnerable in our community. Now, certainly with telecare, I think we have that opportunity, because the whole basis of the telecare system is to maintain independence within the home. Now, one of the big challenges we have had, and I think it's all administrations had, is that the way that telecare has historically worked has been very based towards council residents and has not necessarily looked at those large amounts of residents that may be able to access telecare services at an additional cost in order to then further protect those communities. In addition, one of the areas is how we can work with our partners at the Dudley Group and within the ICB about really have innovative ways of doing that. Now, I note that within the Adult Social Care Committee that is coming along later on this week, that's been brought in for further review, Leader, next March. The question is whether we can delegate to the Cabinet member to work in collaboration with the Shadow for a piece of work to be done prior to that adult social care meeting in March, where we can have a real roots and branch analysis about what we can do around telecare that could actually really benefit all people within the Dudley Borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask questions relating to pages 42, 46, 47 and 48. It's about Briley Hill and the regeneration work, the investment that's going on there. I'd like to welcome the significant amount of public finance that is going into Briley Hill. This really is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform Briley Hill Town Centre, and I very much welcome it. It would be churlish of me not to do so as one of the ward councillors there. The work is continuing apace, but a plea from traders. Very pleased with the work that's being done, that is ongoing, but can we make sure, can you use your good offices to ensure that the work is completed to time scale, because obviously trade is impacted, albeit traders do welcome the significant measures that the council has taken to try and reduce that. So the mitigation measures are welcome, but if you can use your good offices to ensure that the work is completed on time. In terms of the metro, I'd like to ask the Leader of the Council if he could tell the Chamber and also members of the public present and perhaps watching elsewhere on the internet, give us an update in terms of where we are at with the metro. We understand that the metro is coming to the waterfront, that the council is going to be responsible for getting it from the waterfront to Merry Hill Centre, perhaps, and that there are no plans to fund the last phase in the current plans from the Merry Hill Centre to Briley Hill High Street. That obviously is of great concern to people who are very much have Briley Hill High Street, you know, well-being at its heart in terms of trying to drive future trade and increase footfall. Obviously, that would be appreciated if you could give us an update on that. Also, a plea, I know this is another issue that is close to the leader's heart, the Briley Hill War Memorial. A significant amount of work has been done in recent years to improve that. If the Leader of the Council could commit to making sure that there is ongoing maintenance work to keep it in its pristine condition, because obviously it's very important to local people. And I think that is about it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Adam Aston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question relates to page 31, point 16, and changes to the medium-term financial strategy. At the recent meeting of the Cabinet, the impact of the so-called housing data quality issues, perhaps more accurately described as regulatory assurance failures, on the medium-term financial strategy was presented as part of the joint report of the Chief Exec and Director of Finance. Within that report, the full cost of the recovery programme was estimated at £10 million. Given that we can expect an avalanche of repairs and maintenance issues as a result of a Savills surveyor setting foot in each and every one of Dudley's 21,123 properties, how confident is Council, bearing in mind that equates to £473.42 per property, how confident is Councillor Harley that £10 million will be enough? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Aston. No more questions, so back to the Leader to reply, please.
Probably better sitting here. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll answer the easy ones first. Councillor Adam Aston, I'll get your written answer. Cabinet member's not here, so I don't want to quote anything that is not quite au fait. She's on top of that brief, so she can respond to you. Councillor Martin, there is a lot of regeneration going on in Briley Hill, and it is to be welcomed, and it is once in a lifetime. And in fact, on Friday I was at an awards event in Wolverhampton, the National Business Awards, and Memories Cards won an award, which I think was fantastic for a local family-run Briley Hill business to win an award and to beat off some quite large organisations and companies. That was really pleasing. Reference the Metro, this time last year, we only had secured funding to get it to Flood Street from Dudley, just up the road. Now, we are going all the way from Flood Street to the waterfront. We will have to make a contribution to get it to the Merry Hill Centre, but Wolverhampton and Birmingham have all made sizable contributions to improve their metro schemes. Bearing in mind where we were this time last year, I will tell this council and anybody watching online, I am extremely confident we will get that last bit of funding to take it from Merry Hill up past Daniel's Land and onto Briley Hill High Street. I'm also confident that certain West Midlands mayor will also be doing his damnedest to make sure that that happens. Reference the War Memorial, the answer to that is a blinding yes. The work that's been done there is just absolutely amazing, and I would ask anybody to go and visit the Briley Hill War Memorial. it is an amazing piece of regeneration work that really does do the War Memorial extremely proud. Councillor Hughes, I would ask you to email the Cabinet member for a parks development programme, and he may be able to give you a better answer than I can. Councillor Crumpton, it just bemuses me that we can have 6 tennis courts around the borough improved at very little cost to ourselves, and we still have members getting up moaning. If there is equipment or a lack of equipment to resource in a park where you are a ward councillor, then do something about it. Don't wait 5 or 6 times a year to come to full council meetings, work with the Friends group, talk to the parks development officers, talk to the relevant cabinet member and put a plan together. That's what we do. That's what the Worsley councillors do. That's what the councillors do in Norton. That's what other councillors do, both Labour and Conservative across the board. But it seems you just wait for full council to have a moment when we're actually pumping more money into parks than ever before. An additional £300,000. Our parks development officers can't believe the luck. We must be one of the only few administrations up and down the country at this time, in this political upheaval time, pumping money into frontline services to provide better equipment for our kids to enjoy and our parks across the borough. That should be welcomed, not criticised. Councillor Hanif, again, you welcome the funding into the car parks and to make our car parks safer so that people can leave the cars there, knowing full well they've got CCTV protection, but still, you still moan about it. I mean, if you're confused about what data you're receiving or not, send me an email and I'll try to get you a cohesive answer to answer your queries. And then we come to Councillor Ali. Pete Lowe. Pete Lowe, yeah, welcome your comments, and I do think you're right, it's an opportunity here. And comrade, I welcome your late conversion to procurement and commercialisation, and we'll try and make as good a job of it as we can. Finally, Madam Mayor, Councillor Ali, always getting up and saying negative things about this borough. You are a ward councillor for St Thomas's. I suggest you do as you preach and actually visit the marketplace and talk to them. Well, you must be talking to someone who's not from Dudley Market, because when I speak to the market traders, they're telling me it is completely the wrong design. There is a lack of car parking, not just for traders, but also for disabled people, and they want that marketplace redesigned. If there is litter and dirt there, again, you're a ward councillor, do something about it. Put the request into the cabinet member instead of using a council meeting every 3 or 4 months to complain. You are failing your residents and you're failing Dudley Market traders. On a lack of investments in projects not delivered, this report, via VLR and BCIMO, which is the centre that we've built, at cabinet last week, we have now an organisation ready to come in there and bring probably over 200 new jobs to this borough, high-tech, well-paid jobs. That is to be encouraged. We have further work being done on the metro. We have the parks development fund increase. And of course, Madam Mayor, what they won't mention here tonight is we've removed the saving from the library's budget because we have listened to people. We've evaluated that social value. No other administration, Tory or Labour, has ever taken into account the social value. And this is a marker in the sand for future administrations. So when they look at libraries in the future, they will have to take account of the social value. And they'll be damned.
Time's up,
if
Councillor
they don't.
Harley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are all agreed?
Right.
That is carried. Energy Development Fund. I call on Councillor Dr. Rob Clinton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, the purpose of the report is the creation of an energy development fund which consists of a £1 million borrowing approval for investment in renewables to reduce the council's carbon footprint and make financial savings. The council is recommended to include up to £1 million of climate initiatives within the capital programme, which are self-financing over the life of the project. This fund will be subject to the following authorisations of the Director of Finance and Legal, following consultation with the Cabinet Member for Climate Change and the Deputy Chief Executive, to approve schemes which have a business case incorporating a payback of less than 7.5 years. In 2020, the Council made a commitment to be carbon neutral Council by 2030. We have been making good progress against this target, investing 4.1 million in improving energy efficiencies and installing solar panels to our leisure centres, schools and corporate buildings. In addition to this, we switched to 100% green electricity, meaning all our corporate buildings are using electricity from renewable sources. We secured a 2.5 million fund from the Regional Development Fund for carbon reduction measures in our council housing, and a further 2.4 million improving 298 homes. Okay, team building. In order to get this moving more, we need to build a team. Okay, we have committed to building our resources in climate change, adding 5 new posts and future posts identified as part of the Phase 2 Environmental Directorate restructure. This means we now have the capacity to deliver on our ambitions, and the next step is establishing an Invest to Save programme under the Energy Development Fund. Initially, this will be £1 million fund to invest in carbon reduction, which will deliver both carbon and energy cost savings. Examples you can see on page 52 and 53. So these are solar panels, solar arrays for Stourbridge Town Hall, solar arrays for Dudley Town Hall, solar arrays for Cobden Road offices, lighting and controls, St James, pool cover Crystal Leisure Centre, direct drive pump St James, cavity wall insulation, Edmonton Road offices, solar power array, again which is ongoing at Duncan Edwards Leisure Centre. And these can then have an annual savings of the first one, Town Hall, we could be saving 23,708, Dudley Town Hall 10,907, Cobden Road 15,703, St James 51,000, Crystal Leisure Centre 8,799, St James 60,385, Edmund Road 16,408, and the Duncan Edwards a further 28,000. And the paybacks for these will be Stourbridge Town Hall 4.9 years, for Dudley Town Hall 4.97, for Cobden Road 4.95, St James's 2.74, Crystal Leisure Centre 2.95, St James's 3.99, Ednam Road 4.98, and the Duncan Leisure Centre there is going to be 4.2. A lot of those are coming way under our proposal of the 7.5. It's an exciting time for Dudley, both sides, both colours of the spectrum there. It's an exciting time. We have attracted some real talent and expertise within the climate change team, and I'm looking forward to sharing our initiatives during the coming months. Madam Mayor, members of the Council, I move that the recommendations to the Cabinet be approved and adopted.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Formally seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Casey. Sorry.
It's all right. I'm getting used to it. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on the report, I've obviously read the report and understand it. I think there's a couple of points I'd like to pick up on it. Obviously, I dispute that we've made good progress against our net zero target, particularly that we're 3 years down the line since declaring the climate emergency. So I think we need to do much more. I think there's an important point that I want to pick up on, though, in point 4 and point 5 on 52, and it's about funding streams. And it clearly highlights in the report that it's difficult, both externally and internally, in terms of match funding. And I think the issue around external funding being a sort of a begging bowl approach, where every single local authority has to bid for bits of funding here and there. Now, in the amendment to one of the motions at a previous council meeting, there was a point in there about writing to the Secretary of State for Energy around what further financial support the government could give to councils specifically, like Dudley, to achieve their net zero ambition. So I'd just like to ask the question, have we actually written as a council to the Secretary of State to ask what more financial support can be given to councils like Dudley to achieve our ambitions, rather than this sort of begging bowl approach that we currently have? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Eccles, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm really pleased to see that we're finally seeing some progress with the net zero targets, although it's coming very late in the day. As Councillor Kesey just said, we declared a climate emergency in October 2020. We're now in the middle of 2023, and I note that the funding for the solar panels was approved in July 2021. I've done a bit of research on the cost of solar panels, and that's come from the government's own data on solar PV, and the median cost per kilowatt hour has increased approximately 80% since January 21, when the construction of Duncan Edwards started. And while I appreciate you may not have had the funding available, I am concerned that we're now paying over the odds, when it was said at the time by Labour members that why aren't we putting solar panels on the roof of this building at the time it was being built, because there will also be an additional cost to retrofit it as opposed to fitting it at the time of construction. I also note that there's no PV planned for Halesowen Leisure Centre, none for the Crystal Leisure Centre, and solar is great as well. It's a really great initiative, but it needs to be complemented by other things like thorough insulation, air source heat pumps. So why are we just doing half a job rather than covering all bases and making sure that we're efficient going into the future? Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I obviously welcome that so I've got a question for the Cabinet Member for Climate Change, obviously. I welcome that we've got access to this funding. It's important, obviously, that we make some headway with our interest in climate change. I find it a little bit disturbing that really the report only talks about a measurement of success in terms of financial improvements. It does mention emissions a little bit, but surely we should be looking at the emissions and the environmental impact as part of the key performance indicators for the success of these projects. The 7.5-year business case for these projects, does it vary, or is it 7.5 for all of them? I'm not sure, sorry. But it's a relatively short term anyway. And the consequences of the sort of financial failure are not necessarily that clear. But of course, the environmental consequences of not doing it are absolutely clear. Climate change is a threat to humanity, and failure to address it ultimately means extinction. It certainly means a less certain world for our children and our grandchildren. The case for doing the work is very clear, but we must address climate change in every way we can. And I'm just concerned that we're getting too hung up in measuring the finances, and I know we've got to do that, but we're not looking at the environmental impact. And in particular, I don't feel we're communicating that very well to residents, because we've got a big platform and we need to take residents along with us. And I'll refer once again. So we've had 3 years and we still don't have a climate change section on the website. So, and I know that we can do it because we've got a cost of living section that's obviously come up recently, and it's important we do that. It's advice for residents, advising on the cost of living crisis. So why can't we have a climate change section and help advice for residents in addressing climate change, so we can take them with us? I think it's important enough. I think Dudley thinks it's important enough, and I think we care. I just wish we'd do it. So I think I'd just like to ask the Cabinet a particular question to explain how the metrics of success for these projects are being determined, in how we use this £1 million seed fund, and why we've really only talked about the financial success so far, and why we're not communicating our success to residents of the borough. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, like colleagues, I too welcome this paper. It's creative in the fact that we've never done anything like this before. So it is welcome, and it is acknowledged that actually we now have, or we will soon have, a climate change team in place to accelerate the progress of the council. However, this particular paper for me, if it had gone through pre-decision scrutiny at the Climate Change Scrutiny Group, I think some of the questions that have already been put to the Cabinet member would actually have been answered. And I too would like to know how you intend to prioritise projects. Will it be about finance and risk, or will it be about the greatest climate impact? You know, you've got a whole list of projects, but as Councillor Barnett said, we don't really understand the prioritisation of those. I also have just a question around with fluctuating costs of materials. You know, we know where we are at the moment. We know that prices have gone up significantly in the last few years. How are you going to make, what happens if your costs don't stack up? What happens if your business case doesn't stack up? Does that mean your project doesn't get delivered? And then what's the ultimate impact to Dudley in terms of its climate change agenda? I am still disappointed that we do not have a climate change strategy for the council. We don't have a climate change strategy for the borough. And we absolutely need those KPIs that have been referred to in place so that we can understand all of the bits and pieces that we're doing and all of the things that we're putting together. What is their impact on us reaching net zero by 2030? And actually, are we on target, more importantly, to reach net zero by 2030? And my last point, really, it's a comment rather than a question for the Cabinet member, but we absolutely have to get better at fitting solar panels or whatever else we are going to do at the point of construction. And I've said this so many times in relation to the Duncan Edwards Leisure Centre. But I also note that we've had, and there's some press releases on it, for brand new homes built actually in my ward for sale, which is a great initiative again, not a single solar panel in sight. Yes, we have charging points, but we really have to start thinking more holistically and how we embed things into our planning processes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So, Councillor Clinton, you're right to reply.
Okay, I'll try and answer one at a time. The fund, Councillor Casey, the actual fund, how it's derived, the main focus on this is to look at projects. Once we've seen a project, then we do a costing. It's not just costing, it's also looking at the CO2 saving, because you can see that on page 52 there. There is also, prospect CO2 costing involved in there. But what we have to be aware of is at the moment there's not a lot of money flowing around in the department that I'm responsible for. We're still waiting the head of this department, and they're due to start in August, about August the 16th, right, which I have my first meeting with her tomorrow. Right? So hopefully, once she starts, we can start building and then integrating. This might answer some of the other questions there, linking into housing, linking into the different portfolios. There's no real single head looking at the climate issues for every department. All the departments seem to be having their own sort of policies. And what we're going to be doing is trying to bring these policies and these ideas together with team champions. So we're going on in the process of trying to create a team champions to get this done. But yeah, it's finance. There is a limited amount of finance at the moment. As we move forward in time, the finance should be coming forward. If you just listen to what I said, the £1 million fund that I'm after is an initial start phase, right? Everything then has to be proven then to be cost effective. To answer Councillor Eccles, when we're looking at the costings of all this, energy fluctuates. We also have to be aware that if we just sit down and say, well, we're not going to do anything this year because energy is fluctuating, we've got to act. and whether they go up or come down in the long term, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, they're going to be higher. And nobody is going to be able to deny them. They're not going to come down. Things will go higher. They might get stable for a bit. You might have a little bit of fluctuation down. But the way things work, things generally go up. So, we've got to think 15 years in front, 10 years in front. And I know you've all fixated on the 2030, which is a good focus point to be on. And that then creates an impetus for us to be working on, to be pushing harder and harder, right? So, as again, when we get the achievement in place, the sustainability plan and energy, right, down Bristol Road, in August, things will start to happen. And this will enable her to sort of like hit the floor running, right? So the point is, she won't have to sit around, she won't have to find and think around how the council works, what she's got to do to get this and that done. If she comes up with the projects, if you look at these projects that are going here, you can carry them forward in short periods of time. Now, some of them, when you look at them, they have a short payback, right? So what we'll have to be doing is a mix between large projects and small projects. Small projects will be basically finding our feet around how we can get the best suppliers. Right? We can use suppliers, bring them in, build relationships with suppliers, find out where we can find a different suppliers. Right? So they allow us to do that. It also allows us to demonstrate to the public that we can get a few more things done scattered around the borough rather than just linking them in one place. And that's a budgetary constraint that we're working on that. And hopefully, I'm very hopeful that going forward, heading towards 2030, the momentum will only get more and more, right? It'll get faster and faster, given the financial constraints, etc. Right? So, like I said, this funding is an initial starting funding. Once we have a proven set way of doing things, once we scanned and surveyed the borough for leisure centres, libraries, schools, etc., we can then move forward, identify and implement. Right? Now, again, one of the big problems that we may have with schools when we're looking at decarbonisation for Dudley Council itself, its own building, its own operations, is some schools will be under the academies. Right? So we've got to be careful that we're implementing these solar panels on the schools that are going to stay with Dudley, right? Because then Dudley is saving, rather than handing them straight over them to a secondary organisation who will benefit from it, and then it will come out of our Dudley carbon saving. Right? So we have to be aware of the footprint there. Is there anything I missed?
Thank you, Councillor Clinton. Time's up. Thank you. Are we all agreed? That is carried. Annual report of the Audit and Standards Committee 2022-2023. I call on Councillor Angus Lees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say a few words about the work we've done this year.
One moment.
Just one moment while we just get the microphone to work, sorry.
Hello? That's better. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the benefit of some of the newer councillors, I think I'll just describe audit and standards work briefly. The committee's role is to seek assurances from audit staff and officers that the correct legal and efficient running of the council, directorates and their functions is undertaken. The committee provides those charged with governance of the council an independent assurance framework on the adequacy of risk management, internal control environment and the integrity of financial reporting and the governance processes. The audit cycle for all directors of the council spans a cycle of about a 5-year period, and then it starts again. I think we've had a very good year this year, or last year, and have delivered some very good outcomes. One of the big special meetings we had was around the ever talked about MIPIM. MIPIM is an annual event. It's held in Cannes, south of France. It's one of the world's leading real estate events, with over 2,000 investment and finance companies attending for investment opportunities. I think there's no doubt it was worth doing last year, as it has generated a number of organisations wanting to invest in Dudley's regeneration, which if you want to go into any more detail about, I would suggest you address the leader. Just for clarity, because there's been a lot of hot air and mist around this, there are issues around MIPIN, which Audit and Standards investigated, and they produced a 58-page report, a very thorough report, which came before Audit and Standards in September last year. The issues related to, not members, it related to the failure of some officers to not follow council procedures and standing orders with regard to the procurement of services. The committee requested a further report to be submitted back to the committee, and this was undertaken by the Deputy Chief Executive. This was to be hopefully delivered next Monday at our July meeting, but it went before the Strategic Executives Board a couple of weeks ago, who saw the report and they decided that further work was needed, and I believe that the scope of that report has increased. So I'm advised that this will be coming back to Audit and Standards in September. So the work is ongoing. In the area of fraud, a notable piece of work was undertaken by Audit and Standards in the area which relates to a former head teacher who has been convicted of diverting income from the school, the money that should have gone to the school. In this case, the head teacher was barred indefinitely from teaching, and due to the actions of the Audit and Standards Department, the case was brought against the individual, and they are now receiving 2.5 years prison sentence. The jury's verdict was unanimous. The council will be recovering the losses of £70,000, and they'll also be recovering the legal costs, which is about £70,000. And I believe the person in question will no longer be enjoying his Spanish villa. The committee also recommended that certain areas where we found to be unsatisfactory, they will be sent to the relevant scrutiny committee as part of their annual scrutiny programme this year. The accounts for the previous 2 years, which had not been signed off due to delays which were down to the external factors of the regulators and did affect about 169 other councils, have now been accepted and signed off by our auditors. Lastly, I'd like to compliment the audit staff in carrying out the work over the last 12 months, which I think has been exemplary and thorough, and I look forward to working with them this year. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor, members of the Council, I move that the annual report for Audit and Standards Committee for 2022-23 be received and noted.
Is there a seconder?
Yes, formally seconded, Madam Mayor.
Anybody wish to speak? No? All agreed? That is carried. Constitution and related matters, I call on the leader.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, members of the Council, I move that number 1, the recommendations in the report be approved and adopted, and 2, that Councillor Luke Johnson be elected as the Chair and Councillor Jonathan Elliott as the Vice Chair of the Adult Social Care Select Committee for the remainder of the minutes of the meeting. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
I call on the leader to reply. Oh, apologies, Councillor Zarda, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the basis of the discussion that we started this evening, I wonder whether further consideration can be given to point 5 on page 67, that we have an independent remuneration panel who I can see is entirely male, making decisions on the council that I'd like to think we could get better representation. So I wonder whether that could be considered as part before we accept the recommendation.
Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Firstly, apologies to the Chief Whip. I didn't notice on page 68, point 11, so I hope it's okay for me to speak on this motion, internal democracy, comrade over there. It's really with regard to the overdue scrutiny arrangements on page 11, just really appealing, and I note and fully support what's within there, but just give a bit of background about, I think actually really good discussion at the recent overdue scrutiny committee, which led to myself, Councillor Ali and Councillor Hilary Hills, as well as support from Councillors Rogers, Stanley and Casey, which is about how do we promote good scrutiny and good democracy within the council constitution. And I'm sure it may well be an unintended consequence of one of the things that we were proposing, and I hope that when we come back we've taken this into support. But in a nutshell, and I'm looking at my Conservative colleagues over there just to make sure that I'm paraphrasing the issue so that the Cabinet and the leader can take on board. But it's really about the importance of, and Councillor Lees referred to scrutiny committees as part of his audit report. Now please note, it would not be a scrutiny committee, it would be a select committee, because that was the unintended consequence of the constitutional change. The argument that we put and was accepted at that committee is that current select committees are often the best place to actually scrutinise decisions that come under that level of responsibility. For example, when we look at the Children's Committee, the very basis that we have independent people sitting on that select committee ensures that expertise when that decision is to scrutinise. And I refer to the examples of adult social care under Councillor Rogers' chairmanship over the last 2 years, where we've had a number of examples where we've scrutinised, but, and if I could be so bold, the expertise gained over many years, that select committee, could not be overturned simply by having, you refer to the word comrade to myself earlier, but a central committee, almost communist style, of colleagues who then make decisions, yet don't necessarily have the expertise to do it. Now, I noted in the chair referred on that evening the ability to be able to call in witnesses to that, but I do believe, and I do hope that when you consider that we don't reduce the role of select committees as a consequence of trying to be for the select committee, the central committee, otherwise known as the overdue scrutiny committee. I do believe there's a role for scrutiny at the select committee, and I'm hopeful those are the views that were expressed on that evening, and hopefully when you have those discussions with other colleagues, that's the report in consultation with the Leader of the Opposition as well, that can future come back to the Council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Anybody else wish to speak? The Leader, right to reply.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Only two questions. Councillor Azada's question first. Yeah, happy to meet and talk about that. Absolutely all the relevant senior officers to go through that to try and make sure that fits. Reference Councillor Lowe's contribution. The reason we've got the Overdue and Scrutiny Committee, and at the last reshuffle of the committees, I think Dave Sparks was leader of the council at the time. The Overdue and Scrutiny Committee was the committee that handled all callings at that time. So we followed what you introduced then. However, I want a system, hence why there is a select committee to shadow the work of each individual cabinet member, including the leader and deputy. And I think that's important, because if we are to have scrutiny, it should be robust. And you're right, we need the experience of those members who are placed on those individual committees, be it select or scrutiny, to do the job allocated. If there are issues that members want to discuss, then every cabinet member has been instructed that if the chair sends you an invite to attend that particular select committee, then I see no reason why cabinet members shouldn't attend. You know, we shouldn't have an administration where we can't defend particular policies or initiatives or ideas. In fact, if some of those initiatives that are not yet policy are discussed on a wider basis, quite often you find out that you actually get a better a raft of policies and a better idea that we can take forward, not just with the support of the controlling group, but actually wider support throughout the council chamber. But happy to talk to Councillor Lowe about this or any other improvements we can make to that scrutiny process, because scrutiny is important.
Thank you. Have all agreed?
Aye.
That is carried. At this point, can I remind members that under Council Procedure Rule 12.5, the maximum time allowed to deal with all notices of motion is 30 minutes. If the notices of motion are not dealt with within this period, they will be referred to the next ordinary meeting of the Council. I call on Councillor Shaukat Ali to move the motion in his name as set out on the agenda.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Members have seen my motion to bring Dudley Town Football Club back home, and there has been an amendment that has been circulated. What we all want is the best outcome for Dudley Town Football Club and for a home ground to be found for them right here in Dudley. And I believe both group leaders have agreed that we develop a joint motion and bring it back to the next meeting, because it's about what we do as a council and how we drive this forward, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Is the motion seconded?
Madam Mayor, the motion has been withdrawn.
Withdrawn, yeah. So moving on to questions from members under Council Procedure Rule 11. Firstly, can I remind the Council that the purpose of this session is for members to ask questions. There will be a 1 hour time limit on the question time session, and the time limit on all individual contributions during this session will be 2 minutes. All questions will be dealt with individually, one at a time. If time permits, members may indicate to ask another question during the session. When I call on members to ask a supplementary question, this must relate to the original question or the answer given. No written questions have been submitted in advance. I now invite members to indicate if they have any questions for the leader, cabinet members or chairs. Councillor Bills.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is for Councillor Caulfield. Actually, I'm going to start off with, wouldn't you agree, Councillor Caulfield, that the actions of green care and street cleansing were so swift when we had a vandal come to Halesowen? He came with a shovel and shovelled out the soil and the flowers from our troughs for Halesowen in bloom. I'm delighted to say that before any shoppers came into town, it was clear, and I just wanted to say to Councillor Caulfield, I hope you agree with me, that was excellent. The service we've had and the dedication to the bloom. That was just because I wanted to say something nice. Right, the real question is, you know that Hurst Green Park, the Friends of Hurst Green Park, I've been the member there since 2013, set up with the current treasurer. And we've worked really hard to develop our park, and you know that we've now come up with a street scene. And I believe you might be coming to do a video on your bicycle to go around the street scene. I just have to tell you, it is designed for children of the age of 10 and under, so just be a bit careful. We're delighted you're coming. It's been put in this week. But my question is, when we were sharing it and what we would do, I have in an email that if there are any photographs taken, I can't be in the photograph. Could you tell me why?
Thank you, Councillor Bills. I think we were all horrified, especially now with the judging getting so close to see the vandalism. And I got my team out there as quick as I could to help the bid, obviously to clean up and hopefully, not to affect the judging too much. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. With regards to the cycling, I think my cycling days are gone, to be fair. But I don't see where that you would be included, Councillor Bills, as a ward councillor, that's not something that I'm aware of. So I'm happy to have a photograph put up with you, or you can have one took on your own, whatever you want to do. Okay?
Is that your supplementary?
Maybe you could ride the bicycle and I'll take the photograph.
Councillor Bills, do you have a supplementary question? No. Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask the leader, many staff are leaving across the council, so much so that it feels like a sinking ship. Morale is low and some departments are now not functioning as they should. What does he intend to do about that? And also, can I ask him, will he guarantee that the MIPIM report will be published in September, as the Chair of Audit Committee has suggested? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Councillor Harley to reply.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, Madam Mayor, we've got some very extraordinary officers work for this authority, really good officers, and I just don't recognise what she's claiming. You know, we really have a good senior team. Councillor Caulfield has already quite elaborated on his own team in Green Care and Parks. They are motivated. You can only see that, and even Councillor Bills has said how motivated the team were when we had the miners here come and vandalise the Halloween in Bloom display. So that's a clear indication our teams are motivated. Dudley is a good place to have a career, and you know, I just don't recognise what the member has said. As regards MIPIM, we have nothing to hide from the MIPIM report, and it will be published and when it is supposed to do. I think the audit chair has, explained, quite sensibly and elaborately on what the issues were there. We had a meeting of the appointments panel. It's a pity that the opposition didn't attend and have influence on what the proposals were that we took forward. I think that was a dereliction of duty and they should have been there. But as Councillor Lees has alluded to, MIPIM was a success. If you're not there, you are not in the mix. And there are developers and investors that are now only interested in investing in this borough purely because of our trip to MIPIM. We already have 2 deals over the line and many more to come. And it's not just about the Dudley Town Centre. This includes Briley Hill, Daniels Land, Lyons, Stourbridge. These are big money investors, and they go to places like MIPIM to see who the key players are, and they then talk to local authorities and organisations. MIPIM was good, and we'll get that investment money.
Councillor Cowell, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Could I ask, following on from that then, how do you explain why so many staff are actually leaving this authority?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if Councillor Cowell checks the facts, I don't think we have a retention problem that's any better or worse than any other authority. It's no worse than most local authorities at all. And this was explained to Councillor Cowell at last week's Cabinet meeting. Now, if she wasn't paying attention or listening, Madam Mayor, I'm more than happy to have the Chief Executive write and inform her of his answer to that particular question which was raised last Thursday. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got a question that I wish to put to Councillor Jay Clinton in his capacity as Chair of the Public Health Select Committee. It's regarding information that was shared at a meeting held on June the 19th at St James's Chapel in Pensnet, which I did send to him in an email following that. Residents raised the issue of the GP service provided at High Oak, as it appears it's not at a level that was promised at a special scrutiny meeting held earlier this year. There appears to be a lack of progress with reintroducing regular surgeries. In fact, residents have reported that there's actually an issue with actually securing an appointment at all. We are unclear whether the recruitment process for a new GP has in fact been successful. I consider that there has been a lack of a systemic approach to monitoring developments, and it was my interpretation of the programme of scrutiny proposed by the Labour group that this would be a continuous process with updates being available at every future meeting. I'm concerned that the next public health scrutiny meeting is not until the 31st of this month, which is too far ahead to raise an issue that has now has a lot of urgency. Finally, a working group looking into health inequalities in my ward, which was due to be held last month, was cancelled. Therefore, the opportunity to raise concerns and ask questions of partner organisations and officers was lost on that occasion too. In my view, a meeting of the Public Health Scrutiny Committee or a special meeting with representatives of the DIHC, whichever can be arranged sooner, should now be held to discuss this issue. I'm asking Councillor Clinton if he would utilise any influence he has to enable this to happen. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor James Clinton to reply.
It's on. Right, thank you for the question, Karen, and I have read your email. Regarding the doctor's surgery, I'm not quite up to speed with that yet. The cabinet member and the vice chair, obviously, who's your ward colleague, is more than likely more up to speed with that. Obviously, you know, it's a new committee. We have the agenda sitting on Wednesday. You will be pleased to know that there will be a 15-minute update session at the end of every meeting, which Councillor Collins has requested that High Oak is in that 15-minute slot at every meeting. If you require any, would it be possible to pass you over to the cabinet member for a more detailed response regarding the work groups, because that was already set up before I was made chair. Is that satisfactory?
Councillor Bevan to reply.
Thank you, Councillor Westwood. Just a couple of things to pick up there. The meeting that you refer to discuss the health inequalities was cancelled because we wanted to have something firm to bring back to that meeting. And it's not really the forum for questioning partners. We're looking in that meeting to be working with our partners and forging the way ahead. And I would suggest that selected scrutiny is the place for questioning them. I have written formally to DIHC for an update, and we will bring that back to the next scrutiny/select committee.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Westwood, do you have a supplementary question? Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question for the Cabinet Member for Public Health and Wellbeing, and I promise it's not one about High Oak. I understand that you have confirmed that none of our borough's libraries will be closing and the savings previously identified in a medium-term financial strategy will be removed. These are uncertain times for many of us, and it is tremendous relief for residents, businesses, community groups and library staff who have all been extremely worried about their future. As libraries play a significant role in fostering community connections, promoting education and enhancing cultural experiences, could you please share what plans are in place to further strengthen the social value that libraries bring to our community?
Councillor Bevan to reply.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. I can confirm that, as stated, no libraries will be closing and the savings removed from the NTFS. You are right, these are uncertain times, and it is a shame that the opposition group chose siege tactics and worried residents instead of contacting me or entering into meaningful discussion. Fortunately, there was meaningful discussion with friends of the groups, residents and activists with whom I enjoyed some great banter. Sadly, Unison failed to respond to my letter to them, and only one member opposite took the time to contact me about the matter. I'm not going to name them, but thank you for the useful discussion. The opposition, Madam Mayor, have one strategy in these matters, which are normally of their own imagination, and that is number one, complain loudly to the press, and when that fails, number two, strike action. Fortunately, we didn't need to get anywhere near that kind of behaviour, on the subject of which I commend our current provider GLL on resolving the last pay review so swiftly and efficiently. I will answer the question, Madam Mayor. The matter is now one of procurement, a process which this Council efficiently, professionally and diligently carries out since the setting up of a procurement team, opposed by Labour, I may add, a team which must have saved residents millions of pounds by now and therefore protected services which we all value, something Labour seem to take personally and fight against. It is clear from our conversations with those who took the time to do so that this service is popular and a vital part of community life, people from all walks of life. And we take that as a mandate to provide the best library service possible and to further increase the social value in doing so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Collins, do you have a supplementary question? Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Following the correct decision to withdraw from the Black Country Plan last year, which was the first stage in protecting our precious greenbelt in Wall Heath, can the leader please update the council and our residents on the progress of the local Dudley plan? Local campaign groups have contacted me and are concerned that the timelines are slipping. Given the comments recently by the opposition's Westminster leader and their desire to build on the greenbelt, a plan that protects our sites in Wall Heath and Greenbelt across the borough is needed as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Harley to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank Councillor Lawrence for his question. It just highlights where we would be if Labour were running this authority. 2 years from now, the bulldozers would be at Holbeach and on the Triangle. They would not have had the guts to stand up to Black Country College and say, not on our green belt, we won't subsidise your house building with our greenfields. They would not have done that. And if you need any clear evidence, Madam Mayor, that that's the case, just listen to the mealy-mouthed words of Sir Keir Starmer. He will impose, if he's the next Prime Minister of this country, he will impose on local authorities like ours house building targets. Targets that ultimately will mean we would have to build on Greenbelt. The leader of the opposition wouldn't stand up to his National Party leader. I'll stand up to anyone, and my record shows that. And if that means upsetting Conservative leaders in Walsall, if that means upsetting Labour colleagues in Wolverhampton and Sandwell, and in order to protect Dudley's Greenbelt, that's what I'll do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Councillor Lawrence, do you have a supplementary question now? Councillor Sahota, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to sort of follow up the question asked by my colleague Jackie Cowell of Patrick Harley, which obviously I think he failed to sort of answer the question. I think where we're coming from here really is it's costing this council £2 million per year because of the vacancy rates. And we asked this question 2-3 days ago, which I think was quite fudged. How does that compare to other councils? That's the question we're asking. And the biggest vacancy area we've got is environment. We've seen middle management leaving. We've seen other people leave. I understand somebody recently joined the council is also leaving. So that's the question we're asking, because these are the people with the skill set that we need going forward. And I think the other question we need to really also ask, there's a double-edged sword here. If we've got these high vacancy rates, we then have not, as a council, have we really got the funding to then pay for agency staff, consultants on short-term contracts? So those are the kind of things we're asking, value questions we're asking. And I think key in any company, whether it's private sector or public sector, is a barometer, is how the staff turnover is in that organisation. So those are the things we're trying to ask from yourself in terms of staff turnover, I think these are fundamental things we really need to know going forward. So I think it's a very valid question which my colleague asked and which we didn't really get an answer to, which hopefully we will, because did ask it at the Cabinet meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Harley to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's the same question that was asked at Cabinet last week. I thought you had a very detailed response, not just from the Chief Executive, but also from our Treasurer, Mr Newman. Those answers were quite detailed. The process was explained. The £2 million is a red herring, as the Chief Exec was explaining, and it was explained in the fullest possible terms. Now, if you can't remember it or don't get it, Councillor, I will arrange a written response for you, okay? Reference officers or employees leaving this authority. We need to provide better services for residents, and sometimes in order to get the best service possible, you do have to make changes to your team, be that at the top, middle, or at the bottom. We need to have the best motivated teams possible. If that needs making changes at a political level or with the workforce, that's what we do. Any organisation in this country, to get the best out of their staff, they motivate staff and they work with them to provide the best performance possible. When that fails, then yes, we will have people leave this authority. And leaders, be it in industry or politics, should not be afraid to make those decisions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Councillor Sahota, do you have a supplementary question?
I think, again, he has really, we're asking for comparative, and I think when we get that, then I think that will show its own evidence. And I think, like you said, that's why people are leaving, because it's not a good place to work. It's how the council is being led from the top. That's why people are leaving. And we've seen it already in the discussions earlier. It also goes into the members area. So I think that says it all, doesn't it, really? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sahota. Councillor Harley to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, I'll repeat, you asked the same question last week at Cabinet. You also asked for those comparisons, and you were told that you would get them from the officer team. So if you haven't received them yet, remind me tomorrow, and if you haven't, I'll make sure that the officer team forward those comparisons to you as and when they've got them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Bevan.
Madam Mayor, as an English teacher, I fully understand the importance of books. I've seen it firsthand time and time again, the magic that a simple book can wield, shaping minds, moulding futures, and creating a sense of shared identity and knowledge. Ironically, in the heart of this sanctuary of wisdom and wonder, our local libraries, an unfortunate piece of fiction was recently spun. A tale of impending doom and closures weaved not from facts but from strands of baseless rumours, which were, I regret to say, enthusiastically fuelled by our colleagues on the opposite side of the chamber. It was Mark Twain who once remarked, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes." However, it would appear that Labour started so early on this one that the truth was still eating its Weetabix. It was, however, a sight to behold when local activists, fuelled by a misguided but commendable love for these repositories of knowledge, rallied to the cause. A cause founded on an illusion, but a testament nonetheless to the resilience and devotion our residents have for our local libraries. In the spirit of their passion and to quench the thirst for knowledge and transparency, I find it fitting to pose this question to the Cabinet member responsible for our borough's libraries. What measures are being taken by the Council to ensure not just the continuation but the thriving of library services in our borough? How are we as a Council celebrating their value, especially in the wake of such unfounded fears of closure? Additionally, could the member perhaps offer some reassurances not only to this chamber but to our library patrons and our impassioned local activists that our libraries are indeed safe, cherished and respected as the bedrocks of learning they indeed are? Madam Mayor, I'm a teacher and an academic, a believer in the transformative power of literature and a staunch advocate for the enduring presence of our libraries. I ask this question not just for the Council to provide clarity, but to reaffirm our shared commitment to our libraries.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Ian Bevan to reply, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bevan Jr. Son? Thanks, Dan. Madam Mayor, I'm delighted to be able to share that library visits are about 70% pre-pandemic levels and slowly increasing. And more importantly, picking up on Councillor Bevan's point, the number of those attending children's activities is back to 2019 figures. I hope that continues. The Council is taking several measures to ensure the continuance of library services in the borough during these challenging times. One such strategy is this administration's robust management of the budget process, which has allowed for a thorough review of savings proposals for the library service. After collecting unprecedented data on library service usage over recent months and considering the evidence on how libraries contribute to people's well-being, the savings proposals for the library service have been removed, as we know, ensuring that no libraries in the borough are slated for closure. This data-driven and financially mindful approach is helping the Council support the continuation of library services for residents. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Dan Bevan, do you have a supplementary question? Councillor Cat Eccles, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is less of a question, it's more of a statement, to be honest, for the Cabinet Member for Public Health. And also his son, because I find it very interesting that you've just said that this was a work of fiction. So are you telling me that it was a work of fiction that we saw in the Yellow Book before May, that there was going to be a 30% cut to our library service? Because that was not fiction. And it doesn't take a genius to work out that cutting nearly a third of the budget is going to result in some sort of loss of service. And it's nice to see you patting yourself on the back, Councillor Bevan Senior, and saying how you're data-driven, financial incentives, blah, blah, blah. But you're forgetting the more than 4,000 people who signed a petition. Oh, sorry, our activists that signed petition. More than 4,000 residents signed that. There was people across the borough running street
Councillor
stalls.
Eccles, do you have a question?
Yes.
Thank you.
People across the borough running street stalls, staff trying to fight for their jobs. So are you telling us that there has been no consideration whatsoever given to the public outcry about the proposed cuts to the libraries?
Thank you. Councillor Bevan to reply.
I think I've already said we took on board the views of residents. I've also said that there was only one member on the other side of this chamber that took the time out to contact me and have a meaningful discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Eccles, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, please. I'd just like to ask, given that you've carried out this data gathering exercise to assess the social value of our libraries, why was that not done before the cuts were proposed? Surely that's a bit backwards to do it that way.
Councillor Bevan to reply.
The savings were identified in the medium-term financial strategy. You're quite right, that was going to prove a challenge, but the facts that allowed us to confidently state that no libraries will close are there to be seen with the robust financial management of the budget process.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Mark Westwood, please.
Sorry, being an independent councillor, I thought I'd been missed because twice I've tried to ask a question tonight and been ignored. But second time round, here we go. Again, it's talking about libraries really. We're all celebrating great success, and I hear Gornal councillors celebrating with local enthusiasts that actually we've saved Gornal Library, we've saved it. Can you confirm that there won't be any cutting hours to the libraries?
Councillor Bevan to reply, please.
I can only reiterate the fact, Madam Mayor, that this is now a matter of procurement. We will seek to provide the best library service that we can for the people of the borough, taking on board comments and feedback that we've received during the last few months.
Thank you. Councillor Westwood, do you have a supplementary question?
I do indeed. So does that mean that Gornal councillors are being disingenuous to their voters when they say that the library has been saved?
Councillor Bevan to reply.
I couldn't possibly comment on what Gornal councillors are thinking.
Thank you. Councillor Zarda, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I mean, this group really does surprise me. We've got a Kingswinford councillor who won't talk to his Kingswinford colleague, father who won't talk to son, and they feel the need that they need to bring it to the chamber. The Public Health Cabinet member, whose Mystic Meg knew the question that was going to be asked by the councillor from Pensnet and had it all written down, or should I say septic peg, and started to read off the answer before he... What are you trying to do? And then on the other hand, you're sitting here trying to convince us that you saved the libraries. I tell you what happened. You were frightened of people power. 4,000 people. I have got a question, Madam Mayor. 4,000 people and people up and down the country. So I didn't even want to open this debate about library, but you're an absolute embarrassment when you try and make it like you did. And why didn't you, this is the question, why didn't you as cabinet member know that libraries aid social value? Why has that been a surprise to you? Why has it just emerged? And the teacher over there realises that books is really important for teaching. What have you been using to date? You know, so there you go. Why have you just learned, Councillor Bevan, that books add social value?
Is that your question, Councillor?
Yes, it is. I'm disgusted by what's happening today.
Councillor Bevan, could you reply, please?
Certainly, Madam Mayor, at no point this evening did I say that books provide social value. What I actually said is that libraries are an important community facility. Having attended recently with various residents to the cost of living hubs, the libraries are very busy places providing extremely important services, and it's the social value of that we have counted, not simply the amount of books issued.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Zarda.
Yes,
would you like to use your supplementary question?
Yes, would you? So why didn't you know that libraries were an important community facility? What have you been doing with your time? And this whole notion that only one of them came to us. How many of us did you come to and ask about libraries? Why didn't you ask our opinion? Why did you put forward a proposal to close down libraries and you're selling it now as you're doing it? So why didn't you know the basics of what a library is used for? It's an important community facility. Did you think it was a private facility that the selected few were using?
Councillor Bevan, could you reply to Councillor Zarda, please?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. No, Councillor Zarda, I didn't see. I believe it was you that thought that they only issued books and that was what the social value was based on. At no point did this administration say that any libraries would close. That noise came from your side of the chamber, Councillor Zarda.
Thank you, Councillor Bevan. Councillor Hughes. Please, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question's either to the leader or Councillor Caulfield, whoever wants to answer. I had an email from a constituent today. They used to take brake pad oil and stuff like that to Anchor Lane and pour it in a tank when it was open. They obviously, I've not actually researched this, but they're saying they've checked Dudley's provision. They can't take brake pad oil and filters to Lister Road on designated drop-off days, and they're only limited to a maximum of 5 litres per booking at Stourbridge. Because he services all his family's cars, he said he has about 30 litres of oil each time he wants to take. Is there going to be a solution at Lister Road so that residents can take oil and things like that to Lister Road in future? Just so I can give him a reply, directly on the issue. Thank you.
Councillor Caulfield to reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, thanks for your question there, Councillor Hughes. When you're saying brake pad oil and filters, do you mean engine oil? Because obviously brake fluid is a different material altogether. Just to clarify, I mean, I've been
sorry, it says,
so just so I answer
the actual email says, in these times, cost of living problems, I service our family's cars myself, like brake pad oils and filters, etc., because it keeps the cost of running their cars down. But since he's been doing it since the pandemic, and he used to take his old engine oil to Anchor Lane and pour it in a tank. He says that this can't happen at Lister Road, it can only happen at Stourbridge, and it's only a small amount allowed at Stourbridge. So is there going to be anything at Lister Road to do that in future?
So if you're talking about Lister Road, and so if you're talking about the pop-up tip, with the type of licence we've got there at the moment, you're quite right. You can't deposit engine oil or brake fluid for probably for, although it would be a lot of brake fluid, to be fair, 5 litres to that. So I would surmise you're talking about engine oil and filters. So you're quite right with that. So there is no licence for that. The reasoning that it has to go to Stourbridge is because that's where the licence is to deposit. It has to be deposited in the correct receptacle. And if he's trying to deposit more than 5 litres, that's classed as commercial waste. So he would be trying to do it without paying. You know, if he wants to pay through the trade waste scheme, then he could deposit 30 litres, 60 litres, 100 litres. But obviously, if he's trying to take it through a residential refuse site, then he's trying to get away without paying it. So that's the straight and honest answer I can give you for that.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah, so just to clarify, there won't ever be a licence at Lister Road to do that, just so I can let him know. We won't ever be able to do it at Lister Road.
There won't be at the moment with the licence that we've got, because it's a temporary site, see, so at the moment we haven't got that. And obviously it's more of a legislation issue more than where actually you're dropping it at the site. Obviously legislation for recycling used oils and things needs to be in a different type of fixed receptacle that's collected by a certain entity. So at the moment, no, you wouldn't be able to do that.
All right, thanks, Damien.
Thank you, Councillor Caulfield. Councillor Ali.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to Councillor Clark, who is the Cabinet Member for Finance. Can he please explain why he put the proposal to cut 30% from libraries and archives service into the budget proposals in March?
Yep, I can come back to you on that one. The contract was up with GLL, and we assumed that savings could be made from a procurement point of view of the new contract. So that's what those savings were in there.
Yeah.
Councillor Ali, is there a supplementary question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can he confirm if he is responsible for bringing forward the budget proposals to the council, or is it the officer? And do they always blame officers when things go wrong, or do they take responsibility?
The budget proposals that we've just done, is that what we're talking about? They've just gone through.
Yes, in terms of the budget proposals you bring to the full council meeting in March, is it not your responsibility to make sure that things are in there which you are going to implement, and that's why you bring them forward? You shouldn't have brought them forward if you thought the libraries, you weren't planning to cut money from libraries. So why did you bring the proposal forward in March?
The plan was there, and you saw in the budget in March, that was fine, that was all passed by Cabinet and it was passed by everybody, so that was not a problem. If you're talking about the proposals for the libraries, in terms of the savings, is that what you're saying? The same one you just asked? I don't quite understand your question.
The question is, are you responsible for bringing the budget proposal to the council meeting as the cabinet member or not? Do you take responsibility?
For the one that we've just done?
Yes, March this year.
Yes.
So you were wrong in putting the proposal of cutting 30% from libraries, and now it's people power that's made you make the U-turn, yeah?
Councillor Ali, this isn't a discussion, it's a question, so thank you. There are no further questions, so that completes the question time agenda item. There's no urgent business, so that concludes the meeting of the council. Thank you.